All right, welcome into another Auburn Live show. Appreciate everybody for joining us. I am Justin Hokanson, part of AuburnLive.com, the On3 Sports Network. If you're not a part of AuburnLive.com, please go subscribe. Our site has grown tremendously our first 3 months, so be a part of it. We got a lot of great things planned. AuburnLive.com, and I would appreciate it. All right, let's get into the show. Joining us today, friend of the show, Zac Blackerby from the Locked On World.
What's going on, man? Yeah, you can say the Locked On World. Yeah, I got promoted over there. So yeah, man, a pleasure to chat with you. You talked about your site growing over the past few months. I mean, best Auburn coverage out there. It's not even close. You guys are killing it.
Man, we try. All right, let's talk some basketball. We'll talk basketball and football, but I want to talk more basketball, man, because the season tipped off and people are excited. Auburn's got a good team. They got a good team. So they played their opener against Morehead State, looked great, looked fantastic, had a little lull in the second half, but looked really good overall. Just tell me your thoughts on the basketball season. Are you excited? What's got you intrigued?
I think there's a lot to love about what we saw Tuesday night. I think there's so many different dudes that are so one big. I mean, this is a massive basketball team, also very athletic, very explosive. And you've got so many different dudes that can do so many different things. I mean, you got 3 guards that can play both spots if you need them to, and then all of these versatile wings ranging from Jabari to I mean, just guys all over the place. Devin Cambridge he looks to be a little bit more consistent. I mean, he was probably the most consistent shooter in that exhibition game this past Friday where they really, really struggled throughout the game. So there's just a ton of different dudes that can do a ton of different things. And also just talking to guys like Zep Jasper, this team really enjoys the idea of playing defense. That's something that excites them. And that's something that really the whole team has to buy in for that to work. Hoke, you know that as well as I do. If half the team's really in and wants to play good defense, it doesn't really work. They all have to do that. And we saw that in the exhibition game this past Friday. Then we obviously saw it, especially in the first half, against Morehead State. So I think this is going to be a team where if they score 70, they're probably going to beat you just with how they play defense and the depth. I mean, it seems like there's 10 or 11 guys, especially when Flanagan comes back from his injury, that they're going to be able to go all gas, no brakes, just because they're going to be able to rotate guys in and out. You don't have to go hard for 30 minutes. You can go hard for 22 minutes. And, that's just going to, over the course of the season, Hoke, that's just going to be a huge deal for this team. So ton of upside. I'm just excited about the versatility of every dude on this roster.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the rotation. That's a good point. So you look at the first game in the exhibition, and I'd have to go look. But basically, I mean, Jabari Smith played 21 minutes. Wendell might have played 25-ish minutes. But yeah, that's what it's going to look like. And when Flanagan comes back, it'll be a solid 10-man rotation. Where if anybody goes above 25, it would be, a little surprise. I could see Flanagan as a guy that goes 25 just because he does everything. The defense, offense, he's so valuable. But I mean, that's about it. And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think it's gonna keep them fresh. It's gonna allow them to go out there and play some ferocious defense and get after it. And yeah, you mentioned Zep, that guy. He's the type of defender Samir was, like a lockdown defender, but he's so different. Samir was so slick and smooth and just kind of was in the right spot. He kind of could know where you're going.
Zep's in your face.
He had an intuition. Zep is just all hustle. Samir had a smarts about him that he would just slide to where you're going and just be there. And Jared did it a little bit drawing charges, but Samir was really good at it. Zep is just all hustle. And KD is that way. KD Johnson's all hustle. And then you go to Walker Kessler's ability to block shots. I have to go look. I mean, in the exhibition, I think he had 6. He had 5 in that game against Morehead State. And then you look at Jabari, who can block shots. When Flanagan comes back, Devin can get up and jump. And watching teams drive into the basket, watching Morehead go, the amount of times they got to the basket around the lane and turned around and hesitated or didn't put up a shot or kicked it back out was amazing. I mean, Kessler has a massive impact when he's not blocking shots because teams know he's there. And so, yeah, defensively, there's not something, I don't know that there's something they don't have. They have on-ball defenders. They have rim protectors. I think their biggest thing is just going to be rebounding. You saw that in the second half. They had a little lull and really Moorhead was more aggressive and killed them on the boards in the first 10 minutes. That's probably the biggest thing they'll have to work on defense is rebounding, just becoming that aggressive team. Because they're trying to figure that out. You got a few new guys. They got to get that mentality of getting the rebounds and going after the ball. But other than that, yeah, they're going to cause a lot of problems on defense. That they're closer on defense. I've told people they're closer on defense to a championship level than on offense. So the quicker that defense can become, just you can completely count on it, the better. I think that'll then allow the offense to sort of pick up steam. But that defense is going to be. That defense is going to be championship level. It is.
It's going to be lockdown. I think they're going to face some teams that look good going into the Auburn game, and then they're going to see a defense like Auburn they haven't seen at this point of the season. That's going to be really fun, especially through the non-conference schedule, because I think it's going to throw some teams for a loop. And look, you hear the school Moorhead State, and you're like, oh, okay, cupcake, type of win. But this is a good basketball team. And looking at what Auburn was able to do, Moorhead had that 12-minute period in the second half where they kind of had the upper hand. But outside of that, it was pure dominance against a team that was a tournament team a year ago, and they didn't lose a whole lot. I think their player of the year from last year's conference was still on the roster, and so this is a tournament team. And you just look at the fact that these guys haven't played a real game together yet, unless you want to count the exhibition game. And I think they got a lot of early jitters out in that game. But this is their first real game that counted together for a lot of these dudes. And the fact that it looked that clean and that cohesive night one, huge testament to the hard work and the chemistry of this group. And we've heard how well this team gets along. It seems like they already really, really like each other because they've got a lot of great personalities. But also props to this coaching staff and props to Bruce Pearl, because I'm shocked they looked that good night one, just with all the newness and all the turnover and all the dudes that even coming back there in different roles. There's a lot to be excited about with this basketball team. This is going to be a fun group to cover.
Yeah. Bruce, he sent a message to him. They played well in the closed scrimmage against UAB. Right. I know some details, but I can't really go into it because I don't want to be blackballed. Yeah. But they played well, and UAB is a good team. Exhibition was sloppy. Orange and blue was sloppy scrimmage. And he really was close to mixing that starting five up, and I think he got their attention. You got guys like Walker and Wendell, and these guys came here to play and start, and he's like, hey, look, we're about to mix everything up, and I think he got their attention. I was at practice on Monday, and they looked dialed in. It's actually, especially Wendell. Wendell was very focused and dialed in Monday at practice. That's why I went on our message board and I tweeted out, I go, hey, I think Wendell's about to have a good game, because he looked really focused. He was communicating.
Was he having fun?
He was having fun. And he looked like, okay, this dude's about to respond.
Yeah.
And boy did he. That's what he is, man. He's a points guard. And
I like that.
The more he gets the rhythm of the offense and all that, then it's just going to be, it's going to be like what Jared was. He's going to be better than what Javon was special in his own ways. Sharif was special in his own ways, but Wendell's going to be the closest thing to Jared since Jared.
Yeah, there's a couple of moments of when he had 2 or 3 deep threes Tuesday night, and it's like it's impossible not to compare them at times. And you want to let Wendell be his own dude, right? But it's just Auburn fans are so excited. They want they want to feel that Final Four run again. It's like, oh, there's Jared Harper out there again. So props to Wendell. And what I think Wendell played Moorhead State twice last year. He averaged 18 points against them, so he's like the Moorhead State killer. He's really, really good against them.
Yeah, he was fantastic. You mentioned Bruce, and I think that's a good point. Look, when you've got 4 transfers, you've got Jabari Smith, a freshman, who obviously, he's coming in there. Now, Jabari's a little different because Jabari knows what his future is. He knows what he knows what his plan is. Play in a year, and I'm going to the NBA. And he works like it, and he's focused like it. He doesn't. He's like a Koro in that he mentally he's a little bit further along than a normal freshman. Like he's a really hard worker. And he's super competitive, man. You watch him in practice, man, and he gets pissed if things don't. I mean, he'll get mad at a coach for not calling a foul. Like he's really competitive.
Good.
But the transfers are different, right? They come in and they're coming from a different place looking for a good opportunity to show their skills and to fit in. But you talk to them, you talk to the team, they just want to win. They just want to win. The chemistry on this team is as good as for as many new pieces meshing this together. Man, the chemistry is that of a team that's been together for 3 years. It really is, man. They just want to win. They get along well. And it's gonna pay dividends when they go through those lulls, when they have bad moments or whatever.
Right.
When you sit here and worry about minutes, right? If they're going to play 10 guys, somebody asked on our message board, how are they going to do, minutes? How's he going to divvy up all those minutes? Well, easy. They all want to win, and they're all going to get. I mean, if you're part of that 10-man rotation, the low guy is going to get 12 minutes. It's not like he's going to get 3 or 4. And so they just have. There's a lot of great attitudes. KD, Chris Moore, Dylan, Wendell. I mean, there's a lot of good dudes and a lot of good attitudes, and I think that's going to help that 10-man rotation.
Yeah. I asked Zep about. I keep mentioning Zep. Zep comes on Locked on Auburn every Monday night, so be sure to check that out if you're not. He's fantastic. He's one of the most likable people I've ever talked to in my life. But yeah, I asked him about that. Like, it seems like this team already really, really likes each other, and he's like, man, I got here in day one. I felt like these guys were my brothers, and I would do anything for them. And yeah, it's that common goal. Everybody's got that common goal in mind, and part of that is this culture that Bruce Pearl's created. And then when guys come in, it's like a family. They welcome you into the family. So I think part of it is that, but part of it is, Zep talked about he chose to come to Auburn to win the SEC and then win a national championship. And it seems like everybody in that locker room firmly believes that. It's not just something that they're saying at a press conference or in an interview. They legitimately believe that one can win the SEC and 2 can win a national championship. And if everybody's on the same page, and everybody wants the same thing, and everybody's got these great personalities, like, you should get along. This should be it should be fun to be a member of this team, and it looks like they're having fun out there. Yeah.
And you talked to Zep mentioned it. We talked to Walker Kessler.
Yeah.
And he said he's like, man, this team can be special. I mean, he sees it. And so I think they have a lot of potential. Obviously, they're probably gonna be a better 3-point shooting team than they were last year. Jabari and Wendell can knock them down. Chris Moore, you haven't even seen much of Chris Moore. He's played well, but he's got a lot of ability. You haven't even seen him spot up and shoot yet. Watching him,
hopefully he doesn't waste all that against Missouri, and that's it. Like what Missouri, the Chris Moore game last year?
Yeah, well, Chris Moore will be so Devin will become more consistent this year. You'll see him starting. He's going to throw alley-oops and make them. And so you'll see him become more of a consistent player, rebounding, defending. Chris Moore, I think, will be similar to what Devin was. Like, Chris Moore is going to flash. You're going to have games where people are not going to pay a lot of attention to him, and he's going to knock down 2 or 3 spot-up threes because he's got a good spot-up shot. You're going to see that from him, and he's a really good defender. I think if I were looking at this team, Bruce has talked about this team just needing to gel.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the Morehead State game and go, looks good to me. But just wait. They're gonna play 3 games. They're gonna go to the Bahamas, and they're gonna get top 25 UConn, and they're gonna get some good teams. They're gonna test them, and Jabari's gonna go through stuff he's never gone through, and so is Wendell, and et cetera. And they're gonna have those games where it's a tight game. So who do you go to? Those are the things that I'm kind of. You don't know until you see it. Like, Alan Flanagan's the alpha on this team. Well, he's not there. So when you're in a close game, how do they operate? Who do they go to? Who's confident? It seems
like early on it's Wendell. It's Wendell right now, right?
He's
if that game
last
night came down to a last shot, it's Wendell taking it, I would think. But also, like, it may vary, and this is something I talked about with on Locked on Auburn, Hoke, but the guard rotation, for example, like right now it's those 3 dudes. It's Green Jr., it's Zep Jasper, it's Katie Johnson. And like in the exhibition game, really, it almost seemed like the the team was better when it was Zep and KD on the floor. And then Tuesday night, I think it was best when it was KD and Green. And no disrespect to Zep, but I think it's just going to kind of be a different type of rotation every single night based on who's playing the best offensively, because I think they all bring, a lot of value on the defensive side of the court there. But, against the ranked UConn, maybe it's Zep and Wendell that start popping off. And those are the guys that need the 25 minutes opposed to the 18 or something like that. I think every game for the most part is going to look a little different. And the fact that Bruce has these different tools that he can kind of pull out and say, okay, this is what we need for this specific matchup. Or, okay, I wasn't really expecting, Chris Moore to have such a big game, but maybe he needs to be in a little bit more because there may be a little bit more physical down low or something like that. It's going to look a little bit different with all these different dudes and all these different moving parts every single game. And as somebody, that's going to watch all these games multiple times, the fact that all these are going to look different is exciting. This is going to be a really fun team.
Yeah, it's a versatile team. And I think you're right about that guard. I mean, this team's going to go where the guards go, which a lot of teams do, but Auburn teams more so. You saw when they didn't have Sharif, it struggled. And then when he was in there, they were better. They still lost games because of so much youth, but they had some nice wins too because of Sharif being in there and some blowout wins. It's going to go on how those three guards mesh and gel. And the thing I like is I do think there are differences in them. I think Zep's a different guy, and he's going to match up against different teams well. Zep's a really good driver to the basket. He obviously can defend really well. Wendell's just going to, Wendell can spot up and shoot from half court, and KD can do kind of a little bit of both. And so I think the mix of those guys, and I think you're right. I told our message board, I said, look, Chris Moore, Dylan Cardwell, Jalen Williams, and KD Johnson, right? Those are kind of your first four off the bench. They were on the bench. They were off the bench in like less than 4 minutes, maybe 4 minutes in. They're all on the floor. Right. I think Auburn played 10 or 11 guys in the first 10 minutes. But those four, it might as well be starters. I mean, if Bruce had to start any one of those guys, he wouldn't bat an eye. If Chris Moore started, or Jalen Williams started, or KD Johnson started, there would be really no hesitation from him. So you've really got, I think Walker and Jabari are and Flanagan, like those are kind of the three that are probably starting every game.
Sure.
Everybody else, I think, is interchangeable, and it makes for a great bench. I think they had 30-something points off the bench yesterday, and that rotation to be able to go 4 minutes in to switch those guys in, it allows not just a good start, it allows a good first 10 minutes or 12 minutes, that prolonged period where they can keep a run going.
No, there's a lot to love. And I think over the course of the season, you'll see Wendell Green be added to that list as, okay, this guy's a starter. Like this guy has solidified himself as Auburn's point guard, just because I think with what they want to do offensively, get down there quick and, try to make something exciting happen. But yeah, man, I mean, this is going to be a really good team. This is going to be a really good team. And I'm curious to see if there's any drop off with what we saw Tuesday night, just because of the newness and just because they still haven't been playing together long at all. Like Friday night is a team that they should absolutely blow out of the water, but does something happen early? Do they start slow, or do they start out hot and then fizzle out in the second? I mean, there's going to be some of that, and you almost want there to be some of that so they can be coached through it and led through it so it doesn't happen in conference play, because it will happen at some point in the season. So, if you're listening to this and you're kind of expecting excellence, every step of the way, like it's going to take time. It's going to take time. And that's what Bruce Pearl is so good at. So, don't panic if we see them struggle early on Friday night or, at some point in the second half, because I think that's coming. I hope it doesn't happen, before they do their big road trip in the Bahamas. But yeah, this is a team that still has a long, long way to go. But the starting point, Hoke, point Tuesday night is in a great spot.
Yeah. No, that's the key point. Yeah. Where they're starting at is a great spot. We know they're going to go through struggles, and that would probably be my one knock on them. And the one thing to watch is going to be, a little bit of that lull you saw in the second half. I think this team could be tougher. I think this team could kind of grow up a little bit. I think they have a lot of fun, but I could. what I loved about, for instance, a couple years ago when it was Samir and Anthony McLemore and Okoro, man, that team had been through it. That team had played a lot of basketball, and they just were tough. I mean, they won games. You looked at the record and then you looked at some of the stats, and you're like, I don't even know how they were that good. They won more games than the Final Four team in the league because they were mentally tough. This team is going to have to learn that. They're going to have to learn to go through the downs, to be consistent. Because as great as the personalities are with this team, I do see a little bit of, for lack of a better term, immaturity, just in terms of experience in basketball and rolling with the punches. Like, I think that's where Zep is going to be really valuable. I see in Jalen Williams, I see in them guys who've played a lot of basketball, I see a calmness in guys like Zep, Jalen, that will help KD and Wendell when they go through those things. So I'm kind of with you on that. I think there's some things they'll go through, but the sooner they do, the better. And look, the league's loaded. Alabama's fantastic. Kentucky's fantastic. Tennessee's fantastic. Arkansas, I mean, Pearl's not lying when he's talking about those 5 teams, and you could throw in, I don't know how good LSU's, they're going to be good. But, man, there's those 5 teams, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, and Auburn. Any of those teams, if you picked any of those teams to go in the Final Four as a national analyst, people would go, it's possible.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, they get hot at the right time. Yeah, it makes sense.
Possible.
Right.
So it's and I don't remember a time. I'd have to go back and look. I don't know off the top of my head of a time where you've looked at the SEC and been like, those first 5 teams could go to the Final Four, and I wouldn't argue that much with you. I really wouldn't have a problem with that prediction.
Yeah.
So
it's a loaded conference, and the conference kind of all got together around the time Auburn hired Bruce Pearl, and it's like, we're going to care about basketball now.
Yep.
And thank goodness Auburn got their guy when they did, or, it would have been a lot more difficult. But, Auburn's a part of this. Auburn's a part of this ascension of college basketball in the SEC. And obviously that Final Four run kind of made it legitimate. And, winning the conference the year before in the regular season was a big deal. And so they're in the thick of it. And now you like Sharif Cooper was the celebrity guy last night, doing the cheer, and, he's in the league, got drafted, it's crazy to look at what Auburn's done over the past 4 seasons, as far as wins, as far as getting guys playing professionally. It's totally transformed everything. And now it almost seems like every year you're going to get a guy like Jabari Smith, where it's like, okay, this guy's a one and done. But that's how you win championships, is you have this ideal mix, this balance of one and done, just special talent that's, waiting to go to the NBA, and these veteran dudes. And this team has it. This team has that balance that a lot of these coaches are dying to have, and Bruce Pearl's built it here. So we'll see if lightning strikes, but it definitely could. This is a special group.
Yeah, and I'll make one point and we'll move on to football, because you brought up Sharif and those guys. You look in the stands against Morehead State, I saw an Okoro jersey, I saw a Chima Okeke jersey, and then, of course, there's Sharif. And it's just wild. And to show you how far Auburn's come, you have in the recruiting rankings now, you have Zion Cruz, who's a consensus top 10, 15 player. Auburn did not want him. He begged to come to Auburn. And in Auburn, Auburn just decided not a fit, okay? That's a 5-star that Auburn's like, okay. Then they lose Nick Smith Jr. to Arkansas, 5-star. Nick Smith, fantastic player, tough loss. They lose him. So who do they then turn up the heat on and get? Chance Westry, a 5-star consensus player from Arizona. I mean, that's where Auburn's basketball is at. Westry, they loved Westry. They loved Nick Smith a tad more. Nick Smith made his decision, so they go straight to Westry and say, come on aboard. And that's the backup plan? Auburn, it's like not even – it's hard to even comprehend how far Auburn basketball has come.
No, you're absolutely right. I was talking to somebody on staff about Westry the day after they got him, and it's like, yeah, he's like a bigger, better, stronger Samir. And it's like, okay. I'm like, NBA good? He's like, oh, yeah, NBA good. It's like, okay, cool. This is where we're at now. So absolutely crazy. Yeah, when I was a student, you mentioned that, seeing the NBA jerseys there. When I was a student in the student section, you would just wear like LeBron jerseys and Kevin Durant jerseys and your Russell Westbrooks. But now it's like, okay, finally, we have Auburn dudes, or like old Charles Barkley jerseys, of course. But yeah, we actually have active NBA players, and it's cool. It's absolutely awesome.
All right, let's talk football for a few minutes
Sure.
before we get out. Tough loss at A&M, really, really brutal. But hey, look, Auburn's still on pace to go potentially to go 8-4. I think that would have pleased most Auburn fans before the season. So what's the problem? What's the problem? Is there a problem?
No, I think 8-4 is fine. I think it depends. At 8-4, you're assuming they lose to Bama, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it depends what that looks like, right? I think if you lose 56-14 at home,
Yeah.
like I think that 8-4 looks a little bit different than, if it's 27-24 and you got a chance at the end of the game. I think that matters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you still look back and it's like, did he have a signature win? And like, I don't know if it's Ole Miss against an injured Matt Corral. Some people may say it's beating the bad LSU team on the road. You get a win down there for the first time in 2 decades. That's probably it. But we all would have taken 8-4 going into the season. The vast majority of folks, because most people were saying 7-5. That was kind of the consensus across the country. So yeah, what's the problem with it? I don't think anything. You lose a lot this year. You also keep a good bit, but I can't wait to see what Harsin does with the transfer portal in year 2. Now that I think we all understand it a little bit more and this coaching staff understands it a little bit more. And also he may kind of have more, wiggle room as far as the class, depending on how much he fills this one out. But I think 8-4, assuming, the Iron Bowl goes okay, I think a lot of fans would take it.
Yeah, I think the feeling is, and I've heard people talk about that, and I agree. 8-4 was kind of my number. I thought they had more talent than 7-5. New staff, whatever. I thought there was enough ability to go 8-4. I thought 9-3 was maybe the top for what they were capable of in a new staff. I thought 8-4 was a good number. But yeah, it depended on how it went. I think what's made it better, honestly, is a better Arkansas team and a better Ole Miss team. Those two teams are better than you thought they were going to be. Certainly Arkansas. Ole Miss we thought was going to be good, but we didn't know they were going to be ranked 10th when Auburn played them. Mm-hmm. So those 2 games and Auburn winning those 2 games, that's made this a better, if Ole Miss and Arkansas are unranked, you'd go, well, they're about where they are. But I think those 2 teams being a little bit better. And, of course, winning in Baton Rouge. So, yeah, signature win. I mean, I guess you would say Ole Miss because they're ranked 10th in the country. They're still ranked, what if they turn around and beat A&M this weekend? They're going to be right back around 10. And they could beat LSU at the end of the year. I mean, Ole Miss could finish the season a top 10 team.
Good. They absolutely could. You're right.
And so I would say that one because, and I'm not even sure, I have to go back and double check, but I think that was not just Harsin's first top 10 win at Auburn, first top 10 win. I don't think he had a top 10 win at Boise. He had a few ranked wins, but he did not have a top 10 win, I think. So I think that's his first of his career. So I would say that's his signature win. But yeah,
big one.
It depends on the Iron Bowl. How does that play out? Obviously. Mm-hmm. You lose that game by 17, not great. Because then you're going to look and go, hey, okay, whatever, you can say whatever you want, but you don't want to look back and go, you lost by 24 to Georgia and 17 to Alabama. Like that's your 2 rivals. You don't want to say that's what got Malzahn obviously in trouble. Mississippi State's a tricky game. They're a good football team. I'm
a little concerned about this weekend, actually. I think they do. I think they've got a good defense. I think they're going to be able to slow doan Bo Nix in this offense a little bit, especially since that blueprint's out there a little bit more. I mean,
it could be a sloppy game. I think it could be kind of like a little ugly.
Yeah, I don't love Auburn's pass rush either. I just don't. I don't think it's been consistent enough. And when you're going to go up against a team that's going to throw it 40 times, what does that look like?
They're going to complete a lot of passes. Yeah. They're going to complete a lot of passes.
Yeah. But, how many of them are downfield?
Right.
McCreary and Smoke and, Pritchett, can they hold things for, 4 or 5 seconds, 15 yards plus downfield? And maybe they can. Can they do it 40 times? Like, I don't know. I don't know about that. So I don't love this matchup for the Tigers. I think Auburn's going to win, but I do not think it's going to be pretty. And Mississippi State's a good football team. And I didn't really buy into them until a few weeks ago, but it's like they are a good football team. And it's because they kind of catch guys off guard. But I think this Auburn defense feels prepared. I was talking with Chandler Wooten earlier in the week, and he's like, a lot of what they do is similar to what LSU did to them earlier in the season, and they did a good job slowing that offense down. So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like. But there's a few matchups in this game where I'm like, I think that benefits. I think that benefits Mississippi State.
Well, I mean, you're going to need Bo Nix to bounce back because you have a pretty good rush defense in Mississippi State. Oddly enough, I looked at the stats. Mississippi State and Auburn's rush defense are identical yards per carry. Somehow Mississippi State is facing 10 carries less per game. I'm not sure. Yeah, they're only teams are running the ball 28 times a game against Mississippi State, 38 times against Auburn. So those numbers, Auburn's done a little better job if you factor in they're facing 10 more rushes per game. But I think Bo Nix is going to have to bounce back because of that. I mean, Auburn hasn't been a dominant run team, so that's not going to start this week. And he's just going to have to bounce back. And then on the defensive side, I have to think. Rodgers is playing fantastic this year. He completes a lot of passes. And if you factor that into how Auburn plays defense, I got to think Will Rogers completes, at least 30. He's going to complete 30 balls at least, probably 35. Now, I think a lot of them will be in the, below 15 yards, maybe even less than 10. But they're going to complete a lot of balls. So it's going to be on Auburn to tackle, to be patient, and to get off the field, when they can and not give up those big plays. But yeah, it's going to be a little frustrating game because they're going to complete a lot of passes. Mm-hmm. Auburn's going to have to tackle well. And it's going to be not pretty. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a game where Auburn goes out, plays really well, wins by 4. Like, I think there's going to be times where you're like, this is kind of, you just want to win this one, I think. And I'm curious the mindset, right? They bounced back from Penn State. Well, no, Penn State was not good. Georgia State. They bounced back from Georgia really well.
Right.
So I'm curious how they bounce back in that first quarter. Of course, Mississippi State's coming off a loss too. So there's some
and what happens, Bo Nix clearly got in his head. I mean, he looked like, Bo Nix from a year ago and 2 years ago in that second half there. Does that carry over? Is that done? What does that look like?
I don't think it ever ends with him. Like that was the most disappointing thing about him. I'm not a Bo Nix. I think there's a lot of issues, and I think Bo Nix is a better. People that were talking about TJ Finley, and I don't know where you stand, but I saw some people like, can Finley get a shot? Should Finley get a shot against A&M? I was like, no, what in the world? Right. There's so many issues going on here. Come on with the TJ Finley. Like, TJ Finley's not, from what I've seen, TJ Finley's not better than Bo Nix. That's not the answer. What I'm disappointed at is the mental part of Bo. We know that's always been the issue. And I just thought with this stretch of good football that he was maybe beyond that. And he just reverted back. That's what so it's one thing to play poorly, but he lets bad play turn into bad play, turn into arguing with the refs, turn into a lot of animation. And I'm okay. Look, he's a competitor and he's the quarterback. I hope he's fired up. But the mental part, I just hoped he'd take that step of being a little bit more calm and not letting one thing turn into another thing. And that's what I saw against A&M again.
Oh, it definitely happened. You're absolutely right. And I'm with you. I think Bo Nix deserves to be the starter unless, I don't know, I feel like they would have started Finley by now. If they thought he was the guy, like they had their perfect chance to start him. It could be his homecoming against LSU and they didn't. I think there's a reason why they didn't do that. But how does Bo respond to all this again? And, we're probably gonna have this conversation a million more times before he leaves Auburn, but the offensive line was really bad. The offensive line was terrible. They could do nothing against A&M. And I'm a little more okay with it when guys just flat out get beat, right? If like a defensive end just owns an offensive tackle and it's like, okay, he was a step faster than you on that play. Like I'm willing to write that off, but it's just, we're so far into the season and there's just free rushers going at Bo. And it's like, that shouldn't be happening at this point of the season.
No.
Especially with all that tape that's now available. And like, maybe that was the first time A&M did that blitz. I don't know, but they should be prepared enough to where like, at least get in the way. Like I'm not asking you to beat them 100% of the time, but like at least recognize what they're trying to do to you as an offensive line and then, pass protection. And that happened a lot. And, there'd be two guys that come in for Jarquez Hunter and Jarquez can block one of them. And then it's the other one, obviously, impacted Bo to throw it a little bit earlier. So I don't know. That's not Bo Nix's fault. I don't think. I'm not the guy, I don't know exactly what what all goes on at the line of scrimmage as far as who delegates what as far as blitz pickup, but that's a problem that needs to be fixed too. But we don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about TJ Finley.
Yeah, it's nonsense. No, we'll end on this. A&M was just a failure on all levels. Coaching, players, execution. There was not a good element. I mean, A&M clearly, it was so obvious. And I feel like we have to say it because it's not making an excuse for Auburn. A&M had 2 weeks to prepare, and it absolutely looked like it.
It mattered.
They were incredibly prepared. There were even some decent play calls that I saw that A&M was just there. I was like, that's not even a bad play call. I mean, I get why he did it right there. That's probably exactly when he probably should have called that. And A&M was very well coached and was always in the right position. And so we got to give them some credit too. And the players talked about it after the game. They were like, they never let us got going. They never let us got any, get any momentum or any rhythm happening in the game. And that was obvious. Auburn got beat coaching execution across the board on offense. Defense did the best they could.
Right.
A&M didn't execute. Yeah, A&M had their drops. But Auburn's defense did the best they could of they're a total bend but don't break. That's what you're going to get from them.
It works. Yep.
And they have it. It's just crazy that the defense hasn't given up a touchdown in 6 quarters. Like, awesome. But the offense just decided not to score in 6 quarters. How does that happen? At the same time, the defense is like, nobody's getting in our end zone. The offense is like, awesome. We're also not going to score for 6 quarters.
Yeah, I feel bad for the defense at times. And, they're never going to come out and say anything. But, I don't know. You got to score more than 3 points on the road. You got to. You got to.
All right, dude. Appreciate you joining us, man. Let's call it. Anybody that's listening, go to auburnlive.com, subscribe if you're not. Appreciate everybody joining us. Zach's show, Locked on Auburn, fantastic podcast as well. So check him out. I'm sure everybody that listens to me already listens to him. So I don't even know why I'm having.
I imagine we got a lot of crossover, which is great, which is fantastic.
Awesome. All right, dude. Thanks, man. Thanks for everybody listening, and we'll see y'all next time.